how will think once the crisis is over? Will we have company, financial firms, and retailers more solid and stronger, or otherwise smaller and limited because of a better control system? This is the first question.
So do you want me to take them one by one?
Yes, I will one.
Well, I think we are getting towards the end of the recession, and I think that what we're likely to see both in the U.S. But also throughout most of Europe will be a relatively slow and painful recovery. And the reason for that is that the financial institutions, in particular the banks, but also the investment banks and the insurance companies, still have to deleverage a lot. They still have the painful after effects of having been too leveraged. And that means the supply of credit is going to be relatively slow to expand. Also, I think companies, having been through a very difficult time, are going to be slow to rehire employees. So I think it's going to be, much as it was in the 1970s, a relatively slow and relatively erratic recovery here in the U.S. and in Europe. Asia is where the real growth is going to be, and Asia looks like it is going to come back much faster than the rest of the world. Although Asia also relies upon the U.S. consumer, and so even Asia may not be as fast as we ordinarily would have thought. The final thing I would say is that the real estate markets, both in this country and around the world, still have to come down substantially further, and particularly commercial real estate. And as the value of real estate comes down, it will continue also to be a drag on the economy.
And the second is, do you think the stimulus package favors some leave other unprotected? There are already plans for GMs, and they are talking about building new fast trains, but the airlines, for example, are saying nobody are helping them. What do you see?
So yeah, I think this stimulus plan and the various financial rescue efforts have helped some much more than others. And the automobile companies are a primary example of that. At least General Motors and Chrysler are. And the reason is pretty clear. They are huge employers. The labor unions, where many of those employees work, were very important to the election of the current president. I think both for political reasons and for economic reasons, the current administration thought it was absolutely essential to support the automobile industry. And so they are a favored focus of the stimulus plan. Some other companies that one might think of as equally deserving because they're in distress, if they aren't as important in an employee sense, are not going to be helped. So there will be things that for sure are seen as unfair by those who aren't the direct beneficiaries of the stimulus plan, but that's the way any of these things are going to have to be.
Okay. And the last is Angel Capital and other game of resorts and credit are being cut. What the company need to do?
Well, yeah, capital is going to just be much harder to come by from all sources. Both bank credit, but also credit from insurance companies, also venture capital credit, also private equity credit, and it will be some time before those sources of credit are available. So companies are going to have to rely much more either on their own internally generated funds, or they're going to have to rely upon the funds that partners can bring to them one way or another. Supply chain partners, customers, or strategic partners. And so I think you'll see some realignment of relationships among companies as they learn how to finance themselves without the credit of the financial system.
What is Harvard doing in academic terms to face the economic crisis?
So we have, as a result of the crisis we've been through, we have been thinking about important changes to make both in individual courses and in the curriculum as a whole. We have 5 new courses that we started either last spring or this fall. One was entitled Consumer Financial Markets and focused on mortgage markets, credit cards, and other consumer debt, which have obviously been at the heart of the crisis. Another is called Financial Regulation, which focuses on the regulation of all financial institutions. Another is basically a financial history course called The Origins of the Modern Financial System, which looks at past crises, including this most recent one, but it's just the last of 7 or 8 crises it looks like, and how the regulatory structure has evolved as a result of each of these in the past. Fourth is called Managing the Financial Firm, which is a brand new course being taught by a former vice chairman of J.P. Morgan here, focused on how do the new big modern banking institutions think about risk, particularly in a global sense. And a fifth is likely to be, but this one doesn't exist yet, but is likely to be started sometime soon, a course called Risk Management, which in a very broad sense tries to get at how you think about and measure downside risk. We also have lots of individual cases that we put in these courses, but those are the new courses that we've invented as a result of what we've been through in the last 2 years.
How do you recommend business school to teach ethics, and how does Harvard teach it?
We have a course, it's called Leadership and Corporate Accountability. It's a required course in the first year of our MBA program. It's 30 sessions. It's taught on a case basis. So there are basically 30 case situations that students have to think their way through and then discuss in class. And they're typically big, messy, complex problems where ethics is one dimension of the problem, but there are plenty of other dimensions too that one has to think one's way through. So it's not a course about ethical situations that are black or white where it's clear what to do. It's a course about important and interesting ethical situations where it really isn't clear what to do. Should one be fairer to the customers and less fair to the employees? Should one be fair to the employees but less fair to the customers? It's a course about decisions that cut in different and complex ways across the many different constituencies that large modern corporations have. Students go into the course with some skepticism, but when they're done, it's the second most popular course in the required curriculum. The students think it gives them a fantastic practice in thinking through these kinds of situations. So we think it's one of our great successes over the last 10 years. We just started it, I think, 6 or 7 years ago, as a result of the Enron crisis and similar things around the year 2001, 2002. We started this course, and we think it's been great.